Track 23. Conversation 1.
It looks like the government is going to raise taxes in the budget tomorrow.
Seriously? I really don't see how that could be a good idea. It'll reduce spending and affect the economy without a doubt.
Conversation 2.
They just said on the local news that the bus companies are planning to reduce fares for travel after 10 o'clock to get more people to come into town.
That certainly sounds like it would work well. It would definitely help shops and businesses, as well as the local attractions.
Conversation 3.
Oh no, not again. The air traffic controllers are going on strike. That will cause massive delays at the airports and ruin a lot of travel plans.
Well, to be honest, I'm not really worried. I'm travelling by train for my holiday.
Conversation 4.
It says here in today's paper that the government is going to offer free dental checks to people over 60.
I'm all for that. Anything that helps people take care of their teeth has to be a good thing.
Conversation 5.
There's a report in the sports section that says Athletic are going to buy that Brazilian striker Reginaldo for £40 million.
That much? I can't seriously believe that. I really don't think he's as good as the experts say he is.
Conversation 6.
The government is going to bring more doctors and medical staff from abroad to fill vacancies. Maybe they should try to find more here.
It's all the same to me. As long as they're qualified and speak good English, it shouldn't matter where they're from.
Track 24.
That'd be ideal. 6 months is just right for you. You could follow their progress and how the project develops. From what I know, the Pluto project is already a success, but with the Mars one, you can assess how successful it is as it progresses, and you can write it up for your final report.
Yeah, that sounds promising.
OK, but before we decide, I'd just like to mention one more. I heard that the Chinese are planning an expedition to the moon.
What? Another man or woman on the moon? That's already been done. I don't think the moon's particularly interesting these days.
Simon has a point. I mean, the Chinese are coming up now, and they've got some new ideas. I don't think they're sending any astronauts. I think it's just an expedition with robots and machines to find the best place to start a colony.
Yes, but I don't think that's particularly interesting. I mean, no one has ever seen Pluto close up, and no one has tried to go to Mars, so I think they'd be more interesting expeditions to do.
You have a point. Perhaps it would be better to focus on one of the other two.
Okay. If you ask me, I'd prefer to see how a group of people get along living together in a difficult situation, like they'll be doing in Arizona in preparation for their trip. I think you'd get far more out of that, but the final decision is yours. What do you think?
Track 25.
I assume you've seen the latest update from the Mars project. One of the people has had to leave the project in Arizona, which is a bit of bad news. It only came out last night.
Oh, really? We missed that. Who is it?
Alfonso, the biologist. That means that they won't be able to monitor the plants they've been growing for food. Apparently, his mother was taken ill, so he decided it was more important to be with her than stay with the project.
His mother's ill. That's a pity. I hope it's nothing serious. Are they planning to bring someone else in, or have they got someone to take over the plant care?
Well, as you know, according to the rules of the project, no one else can come in once it's started, so they'll just have to make the best of it. After all, in a real situation, you can't just call up an agency and get someone else.
I think Carla would be the best person to take over. As Chief Medical Officer, she's had training in biology.
That might be true, but I'm not sure that means she's the best person for the job.
Why not? There's nobody else in the project who's got her experience in that area.
Maybe, but I personally think the best solution would be to share the work. I'm sure they can all learn how to do it, and what's more, they can make sure that if anything else happens to one of them, the others will have a good idea of what to do.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Thornton. That would be the best solution. But I'm sure they'll announce their plans later.
Right. So now that update is out of the way, let's see what other progress you've made.
Track 26.
Okay, so the latest from the project is that one of the people taking part, Joe, attacked another person on the team, Martin, and hit him. I really can't believe that Joe would do something like that. He's been the quietest up until now.
Sometimes that's what happens. You think someone is okay, but it turns out that they're not. Why did he do it? Is it anything to do with personality problems, or is it just a disagreement about something?
Well, there are strong signs that there have been some emotional or psychological problems which result from being isolated for so long.
Isolation? What, so you're saying that Joe might be suffering some kind of psychological problems? I can see how that can happen in an environment like that, where there's no escape from the situation.
Track 27.
Well, as a psychology tutor, I find that really interesting. Many types of people participate in projects studying the effects of isolation. We all know that one of the main issues with a project like this is how people will get on when they are locked away together for such a long time. It can produce all kinds of psychological and emotional problems. That's what I'm particularly interested in, and one of the reasons why I wanted you to do this particular project.
Me too. That'll be one of the most important things to come out of this project. How people can control their emotions and feelings over a long time when they can't get away from each other.
True, but we have to remember that this is a science project and not some soap opera or television series with lots of silly people locked up in a big house or something.
I can see what both of you are saying, but there are always going to be problems like these, so it's not surprising when they happen. In fact, this is the first time someone has got really angry in the first 3 months, so I think that's quite a positive thing.
So what do you think will happen? Will they make him leave?
I don't think they can. It's all part of the program. And anyway, as the environmental engineer, Joe is an essential member of the team. If he left, then the whole environment of the building would go wrong. So I think they'll just have to work the situation out. Remember last month, when the ventilation system broke down? They almost lost all their fresh air. He only had a couple of hours to fix it, and he managed to do it.
I'm sure they'll work it out. So, what else have you found out?
Track 28.
So, now that the project has ended, we need to review it, and I can help you plan your final assignments.
Yes, I never thought that of the 10 who started, only 6 would finish in the end, and it was really hard for them to get through the whole program. So, what have we learned?
Well, I've got lots of data on the environmental systems and life support, and that's the key focus of my project report, especially considering the events last week, when the whole system came close to failing.
Right. When the life support system went offline for 4 hours, they had to really race to fix it. If that happened on a real trip, it'd be a disaster. They could all die.
I know. It's good that they weren't actually in danger in this project, but I agree. In a real situation, people could have been killed. Who would have thought that it would be on the front page and the first item on the evening bulletin? It shows how much interest there's been in the project. Anyway, I'm hoping to use the data to design a new system if it's not too difficult.
That would be challenging, but fascinating at the same time. I think you'll do well with that, Simon. Personally, I'd love to focus on the particularly interesting and useful data on the health of the participants. I think it'd be worthwhile writing about the physical effects of the project. You know, how they kept healthy in the long term, even though they became ill sometimes. but also about the psychological effects of living in an enclosed group like that. It'd be interesting to see if any of them will have any long-term health changes. Would either of you like to take that on?
Well, I'm not sure if I could take that on as well as producing an assessment of the life support issues. I feel that those are more significant in view of the current developments in technology to support this kind of expedition. I've already looked at the latest reports in the popular science magazines. Though there are some fascinating articles due in the next Journal of Space Studies, maybe I could beat them to it.
That'd be a great idea, Simon, to write an article. But for me, the main thing is the efficiency of the crew and how well they manage to perform their duties. I'm focusing specifically on their abilities to work under the stresses of living in an enclosed environment. I'm going to analyse how well they manage to maintain their effectiveness over time.
That's interesting. Maybe you could include a section on the psychological effects of long-term isolation. Remember the incident early in the project? It'd be very interesting to follow that up with the latest developments and results. I can give you some of the latest research on the subject from other studies for you to compare. I think it would significantly enhance your research and findings.
OK, that sounds like a good idea. It shouldn't be too difficult to develop a wider theme to include the psychological studies. I'll work out a structure for next week.
That's great, Maria. We can meet again next Wednesday, and I can help you structure it. And what about you, Simon? Do you think you have enough?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Thornton. I've got plenty to think about, especially as the study of life support was the main aim of the whole project. I could include some observations about the effects on the physical and mental health of the participants, as it's relevant.
That's fine, then. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
One thing I'm really surprised about is that they managed to complete the project without any extra costs. Everyone was expecting it to go over the original $10 million. I personally thought that it might even go up to something like $12 million.
Well, actually, it says here that the final cost was $9.5 million, so they saved $500,000 in the end.
They could give that to us to fund our projects. Is there anything about future developments?
Well, I heard that they're going to share their research results with government and private organizations. There are a few other organizations planning trips to Mars that would love to study the results. I'm not sure the government is planning anything, but they'd be interested anyway.
What about a follow-up? Are they planning another project?
Well, depending on the results from this one, they're going to decide whether to have another one that will last a year. Obviously, they'll have to find some more participants. Would either of you be interested in taking part?
It depends. I wouldn't say no, but I'd have to think a long time about it. I don't know if I'd want to be cut off for so long.
I think you should bear it in mind. It would be so interesting to see how staying in a situation like that for a year affects physical and mental health. I'd love to follow your progress myself. I might even volunteer. What about you, Simon?
Oh, you wouldn't catch me inside one of those places. I'll be happy to follow what goes on and see how the whole system works over a year, but definitely from the outside, not the inside. I wouldn't mind working for the company, though. It'd be great to study it and get paid at the same time.
Well, thank you, both of you. You've produced excellent results, and I'm looking forward to seeing your final submissions.